Hi, thank you very much, everyone, for chanting together. Good to have everyone here.
Voice from the members, Saito Times, July the 1st. Getting over the coronavirus through the action of caring for others. Ime Matsui. When I turn on
And
TV, it is always telling us about coronavirus. Every time my tears come out when I see the scene of the nurse running around the hallway in a hospital to take care of her patients. She might have a family just like us, but she cannot go home and take care of her own children. In this hard environment, she carries out her mission. On the other hand, TV also shows me the people who cannot endure the lockdown and go out without wearing masks and act selfishly. When I see these people, I feel sorry for essential workers and I feel sorrow in this contradiction. Especially in this situation, people who act selfishly and give other people troubles make their own future gloomy, and they should take it to heart that the action to care for others would bring a brighter future. I have three sons and they have their own families. As a person who has a connection with Hokkekyo, Lotus Sutra, I wish for my sons' families happiness and safety. I believe my mission is passing on compassion for others, and I endeavor to do what I can. If one gives food to others, one will improve one's own lot. Just as, for example, if one lights a fire for others, one will brighten one's own way. On the three virtues of food. Memory from Sunday school 80 years ago. Still enjoyment on Temple Day. Shizuko Uno.
the important thing that it was being said, I believe, is that as we look in the idea of what's happening in this world, which is continuing and still happening, um, that the idea is Buddhism and any practice of spirituality is about the kind of the bigger nature of overcoming of oneself to care for others. Um, and therefore, by caring for others, hence we have the third jewel as Sangha, our mind becomes a bigger mind, able to enact compassion and bring about positive karmic effects, both for oneself and for others, because cause and effect is a community and also world kind of interdependence or interaction, because all actions, even though people don't think that way, our actions have a big influence on others, especially those around us, but even those that we don't see, such as even countries. What we decide to do have huge impacts on people who are not even part of this country, but all around the world, and that is a huge effect. And then when she speaks about um, as a person who has a connection with the Hokkekyo, I wish my son's family happiness and safety. I believe my mission is passing on compassion for others. So this is the idea of passing on the concept of compassion, which is the premise of Buddhism, through one's action, that one can be able to, so we not emulate, but demonstrate action of compassion. Because if we just think of compassion in the Western way, as I said in the dictionary, it says empathy only. But in Buddhism, the second character of compassion means to enact some action to actually relieve suffering. So not simply looking at another's, how do you say, troubles as I can understand as a human, but to actually do something positive.
No, I think also I connected when she was talking about the people that were going out without wearing masks and acting selfishly, and that there's that contradiction. I'd like to think that my go-to kind of feeling is compassion for people, but in the beginning, when I saw people not wearing masks, it made me angry. Like that was
Yeah.
my, it made me very angry, and they didn't act on that anger, but it was still there, and I had to, then kind of think about it a bit more and have compassion for them. And I did end up with compassion, but I found it very difficult at the beginning to be. Yeah, I immediately went to anger. Mm.
Well, it's interesting because everyone has our own opinion, own idea of what is best. And actually, Tsukumoto Sensei said, everyone is trying their best. So even though it might not be what we consider to be best or what we consider to be proper, I think with Buddhism comes a certain humbleness, that we realize, most religion judge others and judge others in accordance with their beliefs or morals. But we as Buddhists look at each person as a Buddha. If they have a Buddha nature, then however they handle the situation may not be selfish, but we perceive it to be selfish. Um, so therefore, we have to be very careful to judge others. I think Buddhism is always pointing inside, internally, that um, we hesitate to judge others because we acknowledge our own ignorance. Um, and therefore, that allows us to have a clear mind to perceive others rather than out of judgment. Because if you like judgment, Buddhism is not your practice, because you should find a religion that has lots of rules and judgment against others. You can do that, but Buddhism is not simple in that way. So um, also the idea of wearing masks, it's interesting in Japan, because I always, going to Japan lots of times, I always wondered if it was ever going to catch on in the West, because the real reason why Japanese wore masks was not in the sphere of pandemic or anything like that. The idea is that for oneself, um, not to inconvenience other people. And whether it works or doesn't work, I'm not a scientist, I don't know. But it was just simply the act. That's why in Buddhist countries, it's the act of, how do you say, like purification, washing one's hands, cleaning the place, etc. Those are, and again, it's important not to get stuck in the worldly matters. The idea is, because suffering will happen, birth and death will happen. The only way to become liberated by that is on another level inside our mind, inside our, how do you say, in our existence. So just to think what is right and what is wrong is useful for humans, but actually for Buddha is not so useful, because humans see the true nature of beings and teach accordingly. So we as Buddhists should just try to be considerate in anything that we do. And again, that is how Buddhism expresses itself through Buddhist culture. So that's why we take our shoes off before we come into house. Also, when you think about laying on the floor and that, where did that all come from? Why did the Japanese decide, and the Korean and Chinese for many years, decide to sit on the floor? That comes from Ayurvedic medicine. Why do they not put their head towards the north? See, Buddhism was the idea of becoming how do you say, in harmony with heaven and earth, because man is the great kind of connector between heaven and earth. So illness and sick, so how do you say, birth, sickness, old age, and death are part of this body. So to simply be obsessed with that part is not the purpose of Buddhism, because this body will break down and we're very vulnerable. Like if you look, I study martial arts, so we're, compared to most animals, humans are extremely vulnerable. Our skin is so soft that you can get cut by a piece of paper, much less a sword. And it's pretty much the whole covering of our body. We don't have any protective, plate or anything like a turtle or dinosaur or armadillo. We don't have that. We're pretty, how do you say, naked and vulnerable beings as a human. What sets us apart is that we have that idea to empathize with others rather than having an instinctual concept. So therefore, your instinctual concept may be to do that to other people, but actually, if you are a sage, you may look at them and understand, try to understand their shoes. So one thing Tsukamoto Sensei always taught me was about being in other people's shoes, which was the introduction, I think, to compassion. Because your concept of compassion may not be correct. So, but to be able to, first part of G, to empathize with the person, you really have to be in that person's shoes, even if you disagree with them, even if you don't think they're right. That means you have to release the mind. You have to release the judgment. and simply sit in that person's shoes. Because a lot of times you can see how people got to that understanding, right? And it's all very simple. And that's why usually you can laugh about it. So, I think I just thought of the Star Wars. The judgment is strong in you, young Jedi. What is that? The desire or something. But that's what people are teaching us, that in society, to be able to judge others and tell others what to do is the way of morality. But actually, it's not. Morality only starts with oneself and how they perceive it. And that doesn't necessarily mean other people. So there's a great saying in ancient China that what a sage considers good, a regular person considers evil, bad. And what the regular person considers good, the sage considers evil. So our whole concept may be put on its head, or how would you say, backwards. So we have to be very careful not to just simply follow instinctive behavior, and that. So that's why you can regulate yourself as you see fit, but we should understand other people, because actually no one knows. We're all trying our best. Science is trying to teach us what is going on. But even that, science will change too. As we saw from the beginning of this to now, many things changed. Even what is that? And for our simple, stupid minds, and even the great genius minds, you have to have that flexibility, because what is you think is correct today is maybe not correct tomorrow. We've experienced that. So just be mindful of that. Okay, let us read the second one.
Memory from Sunday school 80 years ago. Still enjoyment on Temple Day. Shizuko Uno. This is my memory of 80 years ago when I was an elementary student. We had Sunday school at Lengeji Temple in Aichi Prefecture, and all the children enjoyed it as we were waiting for Sunday. I had a girlfriend who was my classmate from my elementary school in the temple, and I played with her often. But Sunday school was something different for us. There were lots of friends who came to Sunday school, but usually we couldn't play together during the week. We got together early in the morning and told each other, let's go. Lots of kids were in the backyard of the temple and it was lively. But one taiko sound made them silent, and we all went to the main hall. The priest started talking and we chanted the sutra. Even now, when I visit the temple, I remember what I did over there, or I sat there with one of my friends. It has been 80 years and I still have lots of memories from it. I'm so grateful to be able to visit the temple, even at my old age, and feel the protection from Buddha. I circle the date when I go to visit the temple and write Temple Day on my calendar. When I visit there, and if I see members who are around the same age as me, we encourage each other. It is a beautiful day together, and it has been nice lately. I enjoy my days thinking of the next time when I can see friends who I cannot see now.
So thank you very much. This is the idea of Sangha, which is important, and also one's connection to one's practice. We can see that even now we may not understand the power of that, but later in our life makes a big difference. So when I speak to people who are later in life, above 80 even, these things become very important and help to support and nurture them and nourish them as they get older. Anyone like to share anything concerning that?
Hi, Sensei. I think it's very nice or important to see how important it is to instill in an early young age to participate and to live the Buddhist life and to learn to chant the sutra and to participate in the practice. I think in modern Western world, a lot of people feel like sort of like that they can let their children choose as they grow older and so forth. But it's really important to lay a good foundation, even if the person later in life would choose something different or another practice or another path in life. But at least you have instilled that foundation of understanding of the world and practice and discipline and all that, and morals, ethics, teachings. Yeah.
Well, having children, yeah, for sure. Sometimes I don't even know how profoundly powerful Buddhism is until other people see my children, because everyone is constantly comparing. And of course, there's an old saying, as a parent, I know all of my children's faults. But actually, people always compliment my children because they actually have their own practice. So actually, Mina, I didn't push Buddhism because that's not Buddhism. Buddhism is, as I learned even from my first teacher, we're all avatars of the Buddha, right? The eternal Buddha. So therefore, how we act, how we live our life makes a huge impact onto other people, even though we don't know it. Like even myself as a teacher, I don't understand, because I consider myself very ordinary, like other people, like everyone, extremely ordinary. And sometimes people say, well, you are a very salt of the earth person. And I think that's wonderful. I'd rather be that than what they consider extraordinary in that, because sometimes feels strange. But to be ordinary is extraordinary. And then to find, and what Buddhism imparts is something that is outlook on life, which is a very positive and important way of seeing the world. Because if you think about it, as a person, not only as a parent, but anyone we interact, what we're giving to other people is very important. And that only starts with ourselves. We can only give ourselves, our true nature to others. It can't be faked. It can't be pretend. It can't be any of that, because people will see through that. So as we cultivate ourselves naturally, it gives people, I think, most of the time, it gives people hope. And then the idea that something exists, because we can't see Buddha nature. We can't see the Buddha so easily, especially in everyday life. It's very hard. Even the way of the Bodhisattva, you don't meet so many Bodhisattvas or even practitioners, right? We see lots of entertainers, but that's not necessarily a practitioner, right? So therefore, to meet the practitioner, I think, like I met Tsukamoto Sensei or my teacher Shangguan Sifu, was to see there was a possibility in life. And that possibility really changes your outlook as to what you can do with your life. And that's essential. Because to see what is possible is sometimes the most amazing thing, because we can see the realm of the Buddha through the realm of the Bodhisattva. And that is someone who does something bigger than just themselves for others. And then they practice for others as well, to become a plus instead of a negative in life. And then to be able to, what we give and leave for others is the most important thing, because we are just people with names and identities that will fade away. You can go to any big graveyard. I was just in Buffalo, and we have some massive graveyards with really famous, powerful people. And then even I saw Rick James, who's buried in Buffalo in one of the big cemeteries amongst presidents and everything. And even though he was a big star and had, lots of things happen in his life, the gravestone is very small and off to the back, because there's a lot of people in the world. Some lived 200 years ago or 100 years ago. And if we just simply live because of our ego, it's easily forgotten, becomes like dust. But what we give to people in each moment, allow them to see that the Buddha nature exists through the way of the Bodhisattva, the action. That is our greatest legacy. So even with children or anyone, we can positively impact them. It doesn't have to be through lectures or religion or any of that stuff. It's just a natural way of living. And that in itself, when we have an instinctual tendency towards freedom, I believe. That's the idea of Buddha nature. So we naturally gravitate towards that. We don't have to be told it's correct. We don't have to be convinced it's correct. We just see it as it is, jiso. And we can easily ingest it and make it part of our own body. So I see that in my children because I don't push them. Even I was surprised Mamiko and Mina took the lay leader course. I didn't push them, they decided. And actually for me, it was kind of
Thank you, Sensei.
Okay, Endo, bye. See you at the next one. But the pressure, because I thought, why do they care what I think? Because they also know all of my faults as well. So let us end and say thank you. So let us do gasho and chant 3 times, please. はい。ナムミョホレンゲキョ